All right, we are live. This is Mike with Fights with Friends here with UFC Ultimate Fighter, where we were originally seeing you on Season 2, finalist there, Luke Cummo. How you doing, man?
Mike, I say I'm tough too, even though I didn't look like it. They soon found out.
Yeah, yes, they did, and you were actually you were my favorite fighter on that series, and I don't just say that because you're here right now. That's why I kind of looked out there. You know, you had the glasses, and it's like I wear glasses, and so it's such a stupid thing to me. But people are like, oh, you must be a nerd, you must be kind of dorky, and I get it with guys on my channel. I know they're having fun and stuff, but it's just kind of like it just really kind of made me root for you that much more. And then the fact those brutal elbows. I mean, that's entertaining to watch.
It's a devastating technique.
Yes, it is.
I had a coach on that season. His name was Gan Yao. He came out of the Fairtex camp in Thailand. He's one of the bigger Thai champions. I think he was 185 pounds at fight weight, which means he walked around bigger than that, and he was 6'3". They had something like 200 fights. You know, they start when they're very young over there. And I remember fighting and him just yelling elbow, elbow, elbow over and over and over again. It's like, that's a game changer. But it's so devastating that they don't even allow it over there until the very final round, because it's like going out to the bar for them. You go to a fight on Friday, you go to a fight on Saturday, and they have to have a certain amount of time in the arena, and if everybody just starts throwing bows off the bell, the night's going to end short. So especially in the championship rounds, championship fights, they'll kind of have these gentlemen's agreements where, the first round they'll just feel each other out. And they play that time music, which it does the same thing. It builds up over time until it's, very fast paced by the end of the match.
That's very interesting. Obviously a lot different than what we're doing, what we do here in the United States for the MMA. I do know there's some MMA leagues that don't allow elbows, but
right.
Can you tell me as we get in this, how did you get on the show? How did they find you, or how did you apply for this?
Let's see. The year was 2000 and 2000 and
I want to say 2003.
Sorry. I'm going to take it back a little further. 1999. We'll skip past the traditional martial arts upbringing. I did Kung Fu, which I think actually developed some of my power that I had coming up as a fighter because of the stance training. It's like having strong roots. But when I was 18, I had a falling out with the teacher, and partially was due to me being a young punk who just discovered alcohol, because I basically fell off of my training, but it didn't last too long. I missed it. I missed the training, and I was driving a cab for a job, because of the alcohol and whatever else I was going through in my life. I didn't make it through college. I had a scholarship to an art school, and I didn't even make one semester, but I started to drive for pizza delivery and a taxi cab, and I drove past a building. It said Bruce Lee's Kickboxing. Something like that. Bruce Lee's martial art, or You see, he was the reason why I began martial arts training. As a teenager, my mom showed me the movie Enter the Dragon, and then I don't even know if there was internet back then, but I somehow found out that he started out with Kung Fu. So I went to the Yellow Pages, found a Kung Fu school. Fast forward, I'm driving in a cab, I see Bruce Lee's art. I go in, I meet Ray Longo. Ray Longo, my first MMA instructor.
Oh, wow.
He said, come back later. So I finished up my shift. I came back, and I went hard. I mean, everything I loved about Kung Fu, mixed martial arts had, and then some. But at that time, this is the very early days of UFC. And before the UFC in America, we had kickboxing, which came from the PKA, which was the Professional Karate Association. Those were the guys like Benny the Jet Urquidez, Bill Superfoot Wallace. They learned martial arts from the servicemen who came back from overseas. They learned karate and things, and they put on little boots and gloves, and they did what was called at that time American style kickboxing, where you weren't allowed to kick below the waist. And Ray Longo trained under a student of Dan Inosanto, who was one of Bruce Lee's main students.
I know. I've read some of his books. I've read all of Bruce Lee's books too.
Yeah, I mean, people call him the godfather of MMA, which I believe to be true. You know, he had a philosophy where he said, don't limit yourself to one style. And he supposedly trained, well, he factually trained with Gene LaBelle, who was a judo practitioner. And you could see a little bit of grappling in his final movies. But Ray brought in a guy named Chai, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but he was one of the first Muay Thai practitioners to come over. And Ray has a close friend named Louis Neglia, and Louis Neglia was not on the level of people like Superfoot, but he was a karate, American-style kickboxing champion, and he began to promote events along with Ray, and they did mixed events where they would have kickboxing, American style, then they had international rules, which was basically Muay Thai, and that's how I started competing under Louis Neglia's banner, which eventually turned into the Ring of Combat, which I just learned that they're up to Ring of Combat 62 now. That's a local MMA feeder organization for the UFC. People like Eddie Alvarez, besides me and Matt Serra and Pete Dragosel, Chris Weidman, we all came up through that circuit. And I fought in Ring of Combat #1.
Wow.
In the year 2001, I believe it was, as a last-minute replacement. I fought a professional kickboxing champion, and in about a minute and a half, I had taken him down and knocked him out with ground and pound because he was a strict kickboxer, had no grappling. I was only a blue belt at the time in jiu-jitsu. But I knew enough to get on top, and he tried to punch up at me from the ground, and we just started trading punches. I had gravity on my side.
Yeah, that's not such a good position to be in. I do know one guy that from his back was able to get a little bit of leverage and throw some pretty sharp elbows on a guy named Joe Stevenson that cut him open pretty good. But
yeah, I learned that from Jeremy Horn.
That guy's
Ultimate
been
fighting legend. He has
in hundreds of fights, yeah.
200 MMA fights. And for a couple of my fights, I went out to Salt Lake City to train with him after I'd met him on The Ultimate Fighter Season 2. We hit it off, and I was like, this guy, he's He's like the master you go to see at the top of the mountain. And he showed me a little bit of that stuff. I got on the show because of Matt Serra. But I had seen season 2, and I frequent a web forum called the MMA Underground, and I saw on that page they posted that they were going to be accepting applications for season 2. So I watched season 1, and I started to do some of the training. They had this treadmill exercise where you had to do 5 minutes at 5 miles an hour, 5 minutes at 6 miles an hour, 5 minutes at 7, and then 8, 9, and 10, 5 minutes at each, which I was able to do at home when I was rested. But then when we had to do it at the evaluation, once I had gotten onto the show, they gave it to us at the end of a 2.5-hour grueling training session. So I think I conked out at about 2 minutes into 9 miles per hour. But I put together a video with the help of my friend, kind of interviewing me and a little bit of training footage. And I believe that they were looking for people from all across the nation. They had a guy from Hawaii, Stevenson's from California. They had Marcus Davis from Maine, some kid from Minnesota, Brazil. They had George Grisel. He was from Brazil. He came to America. And I was the New York guy. I remember in the meeting room with the producers, the guy from Spike TV says, "I know you have a New York asshole inside. What's it going to take to come out?" Because I was like, I was being respectful. I came up in a traditional martial arts school, and this is way before the days of shit-talking your way to a title fight.
Yeah, you always hit me as like that calm, respectful, kind of gentle guy. I mean, you obviously don't want to piss you off and fill that elbow, but very respectful guy.
Yeah, I mean, I was known as the silent assassin. I got that name from Nick Serra, Matt's younger brother, the Mad Monkey. And in jiu-jitsu, you always get a nickname, and it's supposed to be kind of like an underhanded compliment. You get names like The Thing, who was a guy with red hair. They said it reminded them of The Thing, was an orange superhero made out of rocks. They called me the silent assassin because I didn't really talk much, but I performed well.
Yeah, I know you even came into the cage a few times with that ski mask on, kind of seemed to embrace that a little bit. And you'd kind of...
I was developing an entrance attire for Japan. They sent over somebody to scout me out, and had things worked out differently, I might have been able to do it. But I do have plans still to take my brand overseas. But what I would do, you could actually go on my YouTube channel. If you type in either #MasterLukey or just type in my name on YouTube, and you can go back a few videos to, it says Ring of Combat entrance, and I had a ninja suit, homemade ninja suit with a double mask. And what I would do was go into the ring with my hood on, the ninja mask, and I would circle around. I would go past the opponent, and then I would turn around and I would pull off the hood, and I would have another mask under that. So it's kind of like a little show. I grew up on comic books and cartoons, so I still like to pretend I'm a superhero.
I like it. I love the show part of it. I did a couple years with an old school boxing guy, you know, and this was about the time I remember he was talking. This was the time Roy Jones fought Clinton Woods. I went and see that. I think it was like 2008. And he kind of, you know, would tell me, oh, I don't like the Flash. I don't like all this stuff. And so I consider myself, you know, a fight fan, but I like it all. I like the show, and I think maybe some of the other countries, I like some of the things that they do even better than over here, like in Pride and different things. But yeah, that was very fun. I thought
whatever puts asses in the seats.
Oh, I'm sorry, what's that?
I said whatever it takes to put asses in the seats.
Exactly. I mean, they have like the Pride. You know, it was so ceremonious. I mean, I missed that watching those. I know they're bringing back some stuff there, but I mean, that's part of the show. We're watching to be entertained. So I mean, I don't understand why some people have a problem with it, but you know, to each their own.
See, you have two kinds of martial arts fans, MMA fans. Some people, they want to see the blood, they want to see the quick knockout, you know. Then they go home and they have a quick knockout in the sack. But some people, you know, will go to a grappling tournament and sit there all morning watching other people grapple. Then we'll watch our friends grapple, cheer them on, and then we'll stick around for the main event. That's a full day of grappling. You got to enjoy it. You know, if you go to Japan or if you watch the events in Japan, they're very quiet during the match because they're watching. They appreciate the technique. And you know, martial arts has become mixed martial arts has become mainstream now. So I think we're in a period where you have the hardcore fans who have seen it from the beginning, the old tournament style versus style. You know, you go to an event and they're the ones who get there for the prelims. But you still have the people, because it's mainstream, it's kind of like a fad, it's the hot new thing. And they're just going to show up for the main card. And, you know, they're the people that have made it so profitable as a business. So I'm not going to talk trash about them. I'm just going to tell you that there's two types of fans.
No, that's definitely a good point. Like I've seen the first UFC I ever went to was in Portland, and I thought there was definitely a mix of those kind of fans. And then of course I said Roy Jones Jr. in Portland. The Roy Jones Jr. thing, I mean everybody in the front rows, everybody that had the money, they showed up right before the main event, left immediately after. And I mean, you know, there's professional basketball players up there. There's everybody, because this is, you know, the biggest star at the time, probably in, you know, striking sports. And then I was surprised at the Portland UFC. That was the first time I think I'd really seen a knowledgeable crowd where they didn't boo when you seen a takedown, you know, within 30 seconds, or they knew what was going on. They would actually kind of cheer when they could see somebody was getting a submission, and that was nice to see some knowledge there.
Yeah, it's getting there, you know. But the good thing about going mainstream is that you get more exposure.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
People who are new, they still have the opportunity to get into it.
For sure. Like guy like me, like a hardcore that grew up by, I said I did a little bit of boxing. I did judo before that. That was my main thing. I can sit down and watch a whole Eddie Bravo Invitational, all 5 hours of it, but good luck finding somebody else to sit there and watch it with you, you know?
Okay.
That's kind of my experience. My kids would watch a little bit of this stuff when they were younger. Now they kind of want to watch the action. They're in the teenage years. I'm watching, the jiu-jitsu tournaments, and they'll watch for 30 minutes, and then they're kind of like, "Aren't you bored, Dad?"
Right.
But I don't ever get bored of it. Is it when there's stuff that's moving on. If you don't mind me going into the interview a little bit, your attitude on mixed martial arts has changed a little bit. You actually think that you might have had some traumatic brain damage that caused you to retire?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say my attitude has changed at all, Mike. I just would say that it's been refined. Just like when Hoist Gracie came into the cage wearing a gi, now they have uniforms. It's still the same game. It's just been improved. And that's all I'm recommending. It's a more scientific approach. Now, you mentioned boxing. Somebody died this week.
I seen that.
Got Westgarth in England.
It gets harder and harder for me to stomach boxing.
I mean, I'll watch because I want to see what's working. And I do appreciate the technique of it. But the fact of the matter is that there's no safety when the brain is hitting the inside of the skull. It doesn't matter if you're wearing headgear or not. And that's why they're trying to phase out headgear in the Olympics, because it doesn't matter. The brain hits the inside of the skull. And that's where the damage happens.
I seen that. But I believe this next one will be the first Olympics without headgear. I'm not sure if they finalized that.
Yeah. They're also trying to build faces, because boxing's a dead sport. You have one or two guys that can sell pay-per-view, but they want people to see these stars being built. And it's no secret that they do that in boxing. They take people up through the ranks. They match them up so that they'll have, padded records, and then they could sell a big pay-per-view match. Everybody's got their hands in. And boxing is in charge of MMA. And I'll tell you why. It occurred to me in 2008. I got a national MMA ID card, which is very professional looking. It's not laminated. It's a legit card. It's got my picture on it. It says National MMA ID, but it has a watermark. You know what a watermark is, Mike?
Yeah.
Watermark says USA Boxing. I said, hold on a second. Why does USA Boxing have their watermark on my MMA ID card? And then I realized, oh, that's how they got it into the athletic commission. The people who were doing the paperwork, they said, oh, this is close enough. Just use the same paperwork, change a few words here and there, and now it's sanctioned. That's why you wear gloves. That's why they wear gloves, Mike, and no other pads.
I know, and I know some of that. I know it's the same damn judges that were in boxing that are used to judging boxing matches, and now they're judging MMA matches. That frustrates me as a fan.
Well, what frustrates me is you got people like Dana White who never participated in a match. He's a boxer too.
Yes.
He's making the money, and people are being sacrificed. It's just like the gladiator days. They send them out there, and there's no follow-up. I saw a guy get his head flattened out. If you don't believe me, go through the record of Mike Pyle, nicknamed Quicksand. He fought a guy once, he mounted him, and he came down with brutal elbows, and I swear to God his head got flattened out. It went from a round shape to an oval shape. And I don't want to watch it again, but if somebody who's listening wants to go back, I forgot the kid's name. He tried to make weight on a fight after that, and he had some kind of situation where he passed out or something. He hasn't fought again since. But people used to say MMA is safer. It's not. Joe Carvalho's dead. He died in England fighting one of Conor McGregor's teammates in 2016.
I remember that.
And how much longer are we going to have to stand by while Dana White's making money and people are getting injured? Gary Goodrich has TBI. He can't remember what happened yesterday.
Yeah, he's a very good guy. I've talked to him, but like you said, and I hope this wouldn't hurt his feelings. It's only to his credibility. But I've set up. This would be the third interview I've set up with him, and the other 2 times, I mean, he just forgot. He couldn't remember.
My
so,
teammate
man, he was
Pete
one of my
Drago
favorites. I remember that him getting that guy in the crucifix. I think it was at like UFC 7 and landing those elbows. And, man, that hooked a lot of people. He made him a lot of money.
He was a pioneer.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm talking trash about Dana White, but I wouldn't be where I am without him. I'm just saying, there comes a point in your life when you have to stand up for something. But nobody's going to say, oh, hold on, he's got a good idea, that Master Lukey. Let's just stop doing MMA and give him all our money, and we'll change it over to the League of Champions. I understand. I have to build something, and
no, I
it's
get what you're saying.
cutting edge.
I'm gonna take a break for just 1 second so I can hear everything you say.
Okay.
Just give him 1 second. Sorry. Sorry, I don't have servants like Ariel Hawani. I had to let the dog out. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I agree with you on Dana. But you know who it's funny, I think seems to get a pass a lot of time is Bellator, and they're like, oh, they're this small company. They're paying fighters as little as $1,000 for a fight. I went through their purses. They're owned by frickin' Viacom. Makes me sick.
Yeah, I mean, what price can you put on human life? You know, I've done, I wouldn't say a lot of research, but I've done enough to see about this head contact stuff. You know, it only takes one. I mean, we're seeing these warriors take hundreds of blows to the head, but as far as the TBI goes, it doesn't take much. But I was one of the lucky ones. I never got knocked out or anything. I had what I consider to be an MTBI, lowercase m, capital T, capital B, capital I. It means mild. So my symptoms weren't as bad as somebody like Gary Goodrich. I had memory loss. I had irritability. I had headaches. But I'm able to continue working. I can't get hit in the head, though, and that's how the League of Champions came about, because I originally was calling it the League of Assassins, and we did have head contact, but we had full gear, and I was saying, oh, this is a safer way to do MMA, it's padded. But I started to get headaches, and they wouldn't go away for 3 days. Then I had a close friend in Canada message me. He said, you know, they have a name for it, but it's when the brain hits the inside of the skull. You can't pad that. So I took out head contact altogether, and I called it the League of Champions, and I created a point system, which is, I believe, the future of fighting.
Yeah, it very well could be. I mean, I will admit, you know, I enjoy watching MMA. I enjoy watching the NFL, which I think is actually much more violent for the amount of time that they're on the field. But I mean, they just lost a huge lawsuit because of how many guys had this traumatic brain injury. Now they're saying Aaron Hernandez, the guy that probably killed at least 3 people and committed suicide in prison, I think he was 28 or 29. They said they'd never seen the kind of brain damage in someone that young as they had seen in him. And then, as you know, that controls your impulse controls.
Yeah, it's like a guy coming back from war. They have the similar symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, where, you know, they don't know what's happening. They're like, why do I feel like this? And, you know, they say boys and men are not as able to communicate their feelings as well as a woman, so we tend to have situations where we act out. But I'm just planning a takeover, Mike.
So tell everybody.
I'm on the side of the street right here outside of the gym. It's a fairly busy street here in Lynbrook, New York, and every car that drives by, you know, those drivers, they got to have their seatbelt on. They're not allowed to talk with their hand up to the phone. We have rules for safety. You're not allowed to do things that are dangerous, because the system is set up. We're civilized. We don't need to do head contact anymore. But the League of Champions is not at that level yet. Here's my plan. April 28th, it's an 8-man round-robin style tournament. 8 men. No head contact. Full padding. If you type in hashtag Master Lukey on YouTube, you most likely will come to a playlist of much of the sparring that I've taped over the past few years when I started to develop this system. So you can see some of the action. I think that you, Mike, and people who like MMA, we like action. We don't like to see people get injured. We like action, and we like people plucking victory from the jaws of defeat. It gives us hope. When you're down in the dirt, the only way is to dig deep. And martial arts is like other sports where we have the opportunity to inspire people. When I watch YouTube in the morning as I get ready for my day, I watch these motivational videos. And a lot of the speeches come from athletes, from coaches, from ex-athletes. And a lot of the videos themselves, I don't really watch the videos too much. I just put the background on to motivate me when I'm planning my day. I draw a comic book every morning, and it motivates me to hear this stuff. But we also have a responsibility. We also have a responsibility as leaders, especially martial artists, because we're the ones who protect, who teach people how to protect. It's not shooting a ball into a hoop. We're teaching people self-defense. We're the ones who guarded the city from the invaders. Those are our ancestors. So it's not right to tell people to go into a cage when it's not safe in there. We should be protecting people from the cage. And that's my mission. On April 28th, each man is going to face every other man. So it's 8 guys. Each one will have 7 matches. Comes out to 28 matches total. 5 minutes a match. About 2.5 hours to get through the tournament. Every match is the same rules. No head contact and no finishes. You're going to get points for every move. Eventually, once I go on tour, this is going to be the kickoff. I'm going to get to California. I'm going to connect in with Hollywood. They have motion capture cameras. The motion capture camera is going to be on each participant. So we have 2 cameras, 2 guys or girls, and then those cameras are going to be connected to computers which send the scores based on our movement up to a scoreboard. And this is the future where you have an arena and a score being increased throughout the match. For this event, though, we're going to have 8 judges, and they're going to give everybody a score from 0 to 100. Not 9 or 10 or 8. You have 0 to 100. So you could have a 51 match. You could have a 78 another match. You could have an 88 one match. You could have a 65, depending on how you do. Now, after 7 matches, you have 7 scores. And after 28 matches, you have, let me do the math here, 56 scores. So I'm doing the tournament, Mike, because I'm one of the champions. And I need money. I need money to live. I can't depend on the UFC paycheck anymore. So we have $2,500 prize money because I'm selling $125 tickets. If you're listening, there's only 125 tickets, and they're $20 a ticket. It's a steal. Go to masterluki.com and buy some. 125 tickets, $20 a ticket. That's $2,500, and that. Now we're going to do a little bit of math here. Try and stay with me. That's on one side of a ratio. You have X over 2,500. That's how much I'm going to make, right? On the other side, you have my score, which is a product of 7 matches, divided by the tournament score, which is 56 individual scores added together. So that's everybody's score who participated. 8 guys, 7 matches each. That's 56 scores. And each guy gets their 7 scores divided by the total of 56 scores. And that's a ratio which gives you a decimal or a fraction, which then gets multiplied by 2,500. And that's going to give you a certain amount of prize money. So, it's a small event. I'm doing it in the local gym here. We can only fit 125 people. But that's going to do 2 things. Supply the prize money and show that the League of Champions MMA sparring is a viable sport that people are going to want to come see. So the next event is going to be at a legit venue that can seat 500. And they have agreed to bypass the upfront cost of the rent and just take a percentage of the ticket sales. So once I can sell 125 tickets, I'm going to make a documentary about the event. I'm going to do a Long Island tour, and the next event is going to be at a bigger venue. And my plan is to take the League of Champions across the nation and spend 1 week in each city where there's enough of an MMA community to put together a fight card. Go to each school once during the week to teach the scoring system and build the card out of those gyms, and then on the weekend have this event. Well, and go all the way across America and set up satellites in each city so that I can come back and just turn the key and have an event. And eventually, once this digital technology comes into play, they won't need me to be there. They'll be able to have events, and the motion capture cameras will send that information to the worldwide scoreboard. And the League of Champions will be a worldwide phenom. And we'll have a scoreboard for each division. And you can be a champion of the world without traumatic brain injury. And you can have a career that spans decades. instead of just a few years. You know, I mentioned the Thai boxers. They start when they're very young, but they retire when they're very young. Early 20s at the most, and they don't live a long time. You know, human life is precious. With all the technology and science we have, Mike, we should be living to well over 100 and have an enjoyable life, not a cripple. But I'm still old generation.
Agree.
My neck barely moves. I got spots in my back that have to be worked on, my elbows, my joints, you know. I've been through the ringer. But I'm going to keep fighting, bro, because there's a new generation that's coming up, and we got to stick up for them. We have to stand up for them. We have to do this fight for the future. So I'm inviting everybody listening to participate in the League of Champions, wherever you are. I'm doing free seminars. I'll come to your school, and we'll work something out where you can be representative. This is the early stages. We got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears before the money comes in. I don't make any money. I make enough to live, but I'm investing myself because I know it's worth it. And I appreciate people like you, Mike, who give me an opportunity to reach out and connect. I make myself available 24/7 as best I can. On my website, masterluki.com, I have a contact page. It has all my info, even my cell number. Okay, you can call, text, email, find my social media. It's all up there.
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the guys that's a current in my chat room and on my videos, because I can see the live comments right now. His name's Zoltan. In the past, he's kind of given me a little bit of grief when I started talking about these kinds of things, traumatic brain injury and stuff. Say I'm kind of wussing out, and I kind of went back to talking about the fights. He says he thinks this is a really good idea. So, I mean, if you change, you know, if you can start changing people in small areas, you know, it'll ripple.
Yes. Well, you know what they say, Zoltan. Live to fight another day. Nobody's going to call you a wuss for tapping out to a rear naked choke or a neck crank. You know, at some point, you just have to live to fight another day, my man. Every day is a battle. But we're a civilized society. We don't have to kill each other for food. And like I said in the beginning, this is the next step in the evolution of MMA. And that's all I'm doing. When the UFC first came out, you were allowed to headbutt. You were allowed to groin strike. You're not allowed to do that anymore. You're not saying MMA is a wuss. The UFC is not a wuss. It's just a scientific evolution. And that's all I'm doing. I allow elbow strikes. I allow knees to a downed opponent. Just not to a head. Not to the head, and don't finish your partner. Okay? Don't break their ribs. I mean, we wear a chest protector anyway, but it's still a contact sport. I go home, I'm banged up. You know, sometimes I have to hide it if the guy gives me a good body shot. It's still a contact sport, and there's still chance of injury. But we just took it out of the realm of a blood sport. And they don't want you to call it a blood sport, but just look at the canvas after every UFC event and then tell me it's not a blood sport.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I just want to provide a safer alternative, and I will never stop, Mike. I will never stop fighting for what is right. I have personal situation that's forced me to go all in on the League of Champions. I can't go back to fighting, and I can't go into the workforce. It's make it or break it for me now. And that's why I'm doing this vlogumentary. If you go to my YouTube channel every day, I'm documenting my progress. I'm trying to sell 125 tickets. Pushing myself every day because I'm participating in this event. I want to win because I want to go back into MMA and be known not just as a promoter but also as a fighter. I might have to do an executive division, or maybe we'll call it the Ancient Warrior division, 40 and over. You know,
you're making me feel old. Like I was telling you before, I'm a year older than you. So
yeah, well, embrace it. We have to find a way. We won't have the speed. Right? We'll have the strategy.
Well, I think it's a great strategy. I think it's a great bridge. I've talked about it on here, and we've really talked about the future, you know, of mixed martial arts. You know, I thought, man, is it going to be like robots, like real steel, or people going to be playing video games? Obviously, right. You've thought about it even more, and you know, put more thought and more technique into it. And this is even a closer bridge the gap where we can still see the mixed martial arts, but we can definitely contain a lot of, if not most of the injuries. And I really respect that.
Thanks. I want to get some of these guys back. Chris Lieben, one guy I think of. Chuck Liddell. He wants to fight again. They won't let him. I'll face Chuck Liddell. I would love to face Chuck Liddell. I sparred with Randy Couture, Tim Sylvia. I mean, we're going back a few ways, but I'm not afraid of anybody. But I'll tell you what I am afraid of. Not knowing my head from my toes. Not being able to tie my shoes, you know. I want to get my kids back, and I want to be there for them every day, and I want to be able to appreciate that. Like I said, I was one of the lucky ones. But nobody follows up with these guys after the sport. And, you know, we give everything. We give everything to our training, and there's no reason why there shouldn't be some type of retirement plan. I know they tried to do a fighters union or something, but, you know, don't blame the fighter for wasting all his money. He's a fighter. He's not an accountant.
Well, yeah, and I mean, obviously, you know, fighters are different kinds of people. Like you were talking about, I know a lot of fighters, you know, they can't do a day job. A lot of them haven't had a day job. I was talking to, I'm sure you know, smiling Sam Alvey, just came off a first-round knockout. Interviewed him a few days ago. Said he never had a regular job. We're you know, different kind of people. I mean, I was a fighter too, obviously not at your level, but sometimes it's kind of hard to relate to, you know, the average person in the workforce, to be honest.
Well, let me just clarify, because you might have listeners that work a 9 to 5, and I respect that. You know, if I had to do it all over again, who knows? But every day is a battle. You're listening. You got to get up for work tomorrow. You're going to do it for your family. You're going to do it to put food on the table. You got what it takes. And you're a warrior.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I hear you. You know. Much
respect. Same thing to you, Mike.
Well, thank you, Luke. We can't respect you enough.
It's the art of the way that you heart and soul into it, and like I said, I appreciate it. If there's any way that we can connect in the League of Champions, you know, I would take you on as a what do you call it? An announcer, an interviewer, you know, backstage interviewer, whatever you want. We'll make it happen.
That sounds great. I'm going to read you, if you don't mind, a couple comments from one of my regulars. And I know you've heard this, but I'll give you a chance to respond if you don't mind. His name is Cap. He says, the thing is, people have to get behind it for it to be successful. Casual MMA fans want to see brutal knockouts and the back-and-forth brawl. Getting the casuals to change their mindset will be next to impossible. So I'm sure you've heard that.
Well, you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point, and what Pat is saying is that people are dumb. I'm sorry. People are going to eat what you feed them. Look on TV and tell me how many commercials for health food do you see. But what's the point of eating, Mike? Are you a slave to your senses? Or are you the most advanced machinery ever in existence? See, I only eat health food. I don't cheat because it doesn't make me feel good. But most people, overfed, overmedicated, and this is the world that we live in. You know, they drink beer and watch action flicks. I mean, I watch action flicks. Don't get me wrong. And I don't want to insult anybody's lifestyle. But the thing is that you're not allowed to sell tobacco to minors. We have rules. We're a civilized society, Pat. And eventually, we're going to outlaw human cockfighting. And if you don't like it, tough. Because you're not allowed to sell OxyContin to people if you don't have a prescription. That's a big problem in America. But you can get off that stuff using natural remedies. There's something called kratom, and there's medical cannabis. But if somebody's addicted because they got overprescribed the pain pills, who's going to help them?
Yeah,
and what responsibility
you're right. The same
do we
government
have?
that regulated those and allowed them to get them to begin with.
What responsibility do we have as leaders to provide safety? I get what Pat's saying. It's not there yet. And it's something I had to struggle with because I said to myself, who's responsible for my dreams? And then I watched the YouTube video. Just came out a few days ago. It's called Beast Mode, Motivational Speech 2018. He said, there's only one person that's going to make your dreams come true. And there's only one person that's going to put the effort into building your dream. And that's why I'm calling it Master Lukey's League of Champions. Because I'm doing it. I'm taking responsibility. And I will, Pat, I will get to that level. You know why I know this? Because I will never stop until I do. And anything is possible. If you are dedicated, you can make your dreams come true. And you will see that when two people aren't afraid to be injured, they let it all hang out. And the League of Champions is even more action-packed than UFC. Because there's no hesitation. When you watch a fight, and the last round is the most exciting because one guy's behind on the scorecards, and he knows he's got to go for it. That's the whole fight in the League of Champions. You only have 5 minutes. And the more you score, the more you get paid. So take my word on it, Pat. We're going there. We're going to the top. And the human cockfighting is going to be only available underground for people who don't want to be a professional. Because when you talk to people, you have to listen to the subcommunication. That's what the words really mean. when I tell you, Mike, I say, oh, I want to be a fighter. I want to be a fighter. You know what that really means? I want glory.
Oh, for sure.
Somebody comes into the gym, they say, I want to be a fighter. I know they're not going to last. Because you have to grind. You have to do the same thing over and over and over, thousands of times. And if you don't love it, you have to trick yourself. You have to trick yourself to enjoying doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And that's not easy.
Well, I think that applies to a lot of life.
You're absolutely right. I tell my students, you are a legend in the making. A legendary blade. It's a metaphor. They're kids. They don't know what a metaphor is. I say, a metaphor is me talking about something, but I'm really talking about you. Talking about one thing, but I'm really talking about something else. I say, you can be a legendary blade, Mike, and whoever's listening. You start out as a lump of metal. You have to be put into the fire till it burns you so much that you change color. Oh gosh, that's got to feel good, right? You get so hot, you change color. Then you get hammered over and over and over again. So here's the metaphor. The fire is your passion. What are you doing it for? You got to go to work every day. Why? Who are you working for? Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's your loved ones. That's the fire inside. But then you got to be hammered over and over and over and over again over that anvil to be shaped into that legendary blade. That's the actual work. And that's where most people stop. Most people stop at the point where they have to be hammered and they just cool down and turn back into a lump of metal.
I
But
think you're absolutely right.
You're listening. You're a champion. You're a legend. You're being forged. Whatever you're going through in your life, you're being hammered. Just know that it's worth it. The juice is worth the squeeze. I believe in you. And I believe in one nation, Mike. One nation and one family. We're a team. And that's why the League of Champions is the future. It's actually scientific. You have two energies. I call it double dragon. But think of the DNA, helix. You have these two things that are spiraling up. And this is how life works. This is how two people connect and work together. You connect in and you work and you spin something out, rather than what's going on now is you have two people clashing heads. Only one person can win. And that's why the UFC, they can only have half the success. But we're going to have all the success. We're going to win it all, baby.
Well, I mean, you know, UFC, they compare against other sports. I'd say they compare against NFL. They compare against, you know, sports that maybe you say are more stomachable. And a big event for the UFC, as you know, is 15,000 people, 20,000. Football, they sell out arenas of 60,000 all the time. So, you know, you might be onto something. You definitely have a partner in me because, like I've told you before, two of my biggest passions in life are safety of MMA fighters, because I've been involved in this most of my life, and their livelihood, making sure they get paid fair when they're in the sport, and they have a life after the sport.
You are the best, Mike. Thank you again for having me on. Do we have any more questions before we go? Because I haven't eaten all day. I'm doing a special diet. It's called the Dino Warrior. Combines two things. You may have seen it on my vlog, but basically the Warrior diet is eating one meal a day at the end of the day. I noticed that if I have any food in my stomach when I train, I can't push as hard. I have energy that's being diverted to digestion. And now I'll never throw up no matter how hard I get pushed, and I will never get stomach cramps because there's nothing there. But the Warrior diet is based on a theory that states that, you know, we come from the great ape family, still to this day. Look it up. We are great apes. Facts. But our ancestors, they didn't have refrigerators. They didn't have cupboards to dip into when they wake up in the morning. They had to go out and forage. They may have had to fight for their life. But then at the end of the day, the tribe got back together and everybody put everything back in the middle and we had a big feast. So I have my meal at the end of the day. That's the Warrior diet. The Dino Diet is my first commercial recipe. Now I'm certified by a doctor. It's called Life Food Certified. It's the cutting edge of food science. And this doctor in the 90s used something called phase contrast microscopes, which before that time they were looking at pictures of blood. Now they can see a movie in real time. So he was able to see what happens to people's blood when they eat. And he refined the ingredients list of health food down to what's called life food. And I studied with him starting in 2005, and I got fully certified by him in 2013 to help people heal from any condition. You'd name it. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, autism, Crohn's, colitis, whatever, PTSD, by doing natural healing, no drugs, no surgery. I also offer free consultations for health.
So where
but
can
Master
people find
Lukey
you?
Master Lukey brand is going to spin off of the League of Champions because MMA is hot. That's going to get me in the public eye. And then I'm going to spin off my line of health food. The first recipe is called Dino Scales. And it's a pumpkin seed, which is the highest plant protein. It fits into the keto diet because it's high protein and high fat, low carb. And, you know, people want to know, where do I get my protein? Monday through Friday, all I eat is Dino Scales. It's not fun, but I'm pushing myself. I'm putting it out there. I said to the universe, this is how dedicated I am. I want that energy to come back to me. So I'm doing the Dino Warrior diet Monday through Friday. On Saturday, I do a cleanse. And on Sunday, I make a different type of recipe, which is most likely out of my recipe book. But I'm also working with people to hopefully open a restaurant. So this Sunday, I'm gonna be making them some of my other recipes. So I wouldn't say I'm hangry, you know, hungry and angry, but I'm ready to eat. But if you have any more questions, Mike, I'm here for you.
All right. I think the only two questions I have before we go is, if people missed it, where can they watch the first event on April 28th, League of Champions?
Oh, that's a great question. I know I'm definitely turning it into a documentary because I have 8 guys. I want to tell their story. I want to tell the story about the League of Champions itself and then actually have the matches. I used to love watching, you know, you talk about the old Pride and the UFC. They built a story around these fighters. They said, oh, you know, this guy, he was a kung fu stylist. This guy, he was a He was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert. He had a karate guy. They had interviews. So, I'll turn it into a YouTube. But my brother works for Vimeo now, which just bought out Livestream.
Really, I did not realize that.
Yeah, it's one way or the other. Either Vimeo bought Livestream or Livestream bought Vimeo. I think Vimeo bought Livestream, but I'm gonna work with him and see if I can get a live broadcast going up. I know the guy from Go Fight Live had said that he would do it, but stay tuned to MasterLuki.com. If you go on Facebook, I have a Facebook group, the Master Luki's League of Champions, so I post updates on there. You can friend request me. Everything on my page is either about health, food, or MMA. And then, like I said, if anybody has any questions, they can just contact me directly.
Okay, what city is the live event in, though, if people want to buy tickets?
Lynbrook, New York. And
All
that's
right.
on Long Island. And then coming soon to a city near you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely be in contact in the future. I'll talk with you about a few of the MMA contacts I have here. As you know, Demetrius Johnson is in this area. I'm friends with Ivan Salivary, who is a UFC veteran. He's got a gym in Seattle. So we'll get together, and I know you got to eat. I can't imagine going all day without eating, but thank you very much for your time, sir. It was definitely a pleasure and one of my favorite interviews.
Same here, Mike. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next one.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
All right, talk soon, brother. Good night.
Night. All right, guys. Thank you for everybody that watched that interview. I wasn't sure how long we were going to go. He just wanted to keep on talking, and that was absolutely great with me. I'm not going to even bother with the camera for MMA Live at 5 right now. Just give me a second. I'm just going to put the Fights with Friends logo up in the background, and we'll go into the week of fights. No financial information on here, so don't get too excited by this comedic genius. All right, thank you everybody for your patience there. Yes, I am a Metallica fan, RS. What's up, Dean? Thanks for tuning in, man. How's everybody doing? Crazy week in MMA. That was a last-minute interview with Luke Cummo, but like I said, he actually was my favorite fighter from Season 2. Incredible guy, and maybe that was more fun for me than for anybody else, but I definitely enjoyed myself. So big news, we've been talking about it all week, of course, was Jon Jones had his hearing, California State Athletic Commission hearing, and if you've seen anything about it, you know it was a train wreck. Highlights of that were, of course, $205,000 fine, 40% of his purse. Jon Jones was asked to defend himself. I just pled ignorance. He said, I gave you all the substances I took, and I have no idea how this got in my body. That's a hard sell for me. Thank you, Cap. I appreciate it. He definitely led that interview. In the past, I've led interviews, and I kind of try to jump in a little bit here and there, and then I'm like, man, I'm just going to let this guy talk. And sometimes that's what you got to do, I guess, but definitely turned out well. RS says F Jon Jones. I agree, man. How many times is this guy going to mess up? So he admits, they didn't even ask him. he admittedly throws his lawyers under the bus and decides to give them information that he paid them to take his USADA training for him. So they may be guilty of a crime now for forging documents. And this guy, he can't get out of his own way for anything. So he's missed years of his prime fighting years now, of course. He admitted during that hearing that hit and run with the pregnant lady a year or so ago cost him about $1 million. All that being said, everything Jon Jones has done, he can apply for his California license on August 26, assuming USADA doesn't tack on extra penalties, and I kind of have a feeling that they probably won't. So, I mean, we'll see. Maybe, maybe he's got some traumatic brain injuries and impulse controls, like Luke was talking about. A lot of these fighters have. And if he does, I mean, I feel bad for that, but man, somebody grab that guy and pull his hair out and be like, what in the hell are you doing? He's given up so many years, like I said, of his prime fighting life, and man, who knows if he ever fights again. That guy's so unpredictable. You seen the video I posted where you could bet on if Jon Jones would fight again this year, if he could get arrested this year. And it's dude, unfortunately, is a train wreck. So I'm glad we were able to jump right into MMA Live at 5, though. Thank you guys for coming on for that interview. I don't think I advertised it really well, but that's the longest interview, as far as I know, that he's ever done. Usually he's like 5-10 minutes and out, so I was really appreciative for that. Talking about fighter safety, moving on, I was looking, this was actually last week's, but I hadn't talked about this. It was for the Florida event. UFC canceled the fight for the first time before the weigh-ins because it was determined the fighter, who was Gilbert Burns, could not safely make the 155-pound limit. So I don't know how much this guy was over, but he was supposed to fight Gilbert Burns. He was supposed to fight Olivier Aubin-Mercier Tuesday. The fights were on Saturday. Tuesday, they looked at this guy and said, it's not safe for you to make 155. They canceled the fight, and that's why the Florida card had 12 fights instead of 13. So pretty crazy there, but I'm glad they stepped in for the safety of the fighter. Yeah, it was another boxer that died from last week in England, and I think Luke, I seen that, and I think Luke briefly mentioned that. He's more against boxing than he is against MMA. It's like, man, I love MMA so much. I just have this feeling, like he says, that we're not going to be able to do this forever. Everything we know about brain injury and stuff now, I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts, but in its current form, I don't think we're going to do it forever. He's obviously thought about this idea, League of Legends, for quite a while. Maybe he's onto something. He's going to have a lot of support. What's up, Yvette? He's going to have a hell of a lot of support, though, to pull it off. As you guys said, there's a lot of people that they just want to see violence. A lot of kids from the ghetto make their lives way better because of boxing. And you're right, RS, and that's one of these things that's going to... Man, I'll tell you, I grew up on the conservative side of the state, and I moved to the more liberal side of the state. It's been almost 12 years now. I'm 39, and I moved here when I was 28, so 11 years. And like I've said in the past, I don't like to pick sides. I think they're both cults that push us against each other. But I got a more balanced view of some things, I think. 7 says red equals green, for sure. And I used to be very, very against a lot of government assistance. I've still never taken it myself. That's just a blessing that I've been healthy enough to continue to work and different things for my family. I definitely would now take it if I needed it to support my family. I mean, for God's sakes, that's your family. But you know, since coming to this side, maybe we have a universal income one day. Maybe we give people from, you know, 18 to 22 a small stipend so they can chase their dreams and not work that 9 to 5. You know, like he was saying, he doesn't want to insult anybody. He's working 9 to 5. Well, I'm working 9 to 5, 6 to 2:30, whatever you want to call it. You know, so, but yeah, I like that 7 red equals green. But I hope we're moving towards a more civilized society. I hope we get to a point to where if you don't work 40, 50 hours a week, generally it's been thought, and you know, in the recent future, that you're basically a piece of trash, which I think is pretty sad. And maybe I believe closer to that one day. But hopefully we're on the right track. I'll try to get back to some MMA here, though. UFC 222, Chris Cyborg, widest line in her entire career. So minus 1,750 favorite. That means you would have to put down $1,750 to make $100. That's how sure Vegas is that Chris Cyborg's going to win. RS says it's not just that. A lot of people end up with dementia and Parkinson's regardless of concussions. Oh, I agree with you, RS. And like I said, I mean, he's definitely fighting against the odds. And I'd be a hypocrite to criticize anybody in the fighting community because I enjoy watching it. I mean, this is how I want to make my living, is on YouTube. And, you know, I commentate and call the, you know, the brutal fights that these guys are in all the time. Just because, you know, we haven't witnessed anybody die in the octagon, you know, doesn't mean that there's not blood on some of our hands. And, you know, maybe there's blood on my hands. But I love the sport. And like you said, a lot of people have made their living because of it that wouldn't be able to do a lot of other things. He talked about not being able to work a regular job, and I just think some fighters, they're different animals. And I wasn't meaning as an insult to other people. I think he wanted to make sure that it wasn't thought of as that, but I don't like to be told what to do. I know nobody does, but I have a very, very hard time. That's why I always wanted to be in charge. I made a goal, and I thought I was successful because I got up to an executive level, blah, 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 bullshit name tag and all. RS says there is blood on everybody's hands. People get shot, get sick, starve to death every day. For sure, RS. Absolutely. But Zoltan Roman said that about gladiators too. Good point, Zoltan. Absolutely. But I said this UFC 222 card, Chris Cyborg, huge favorite. That's why I won't be getting that card, actually. I won't be streaming it. Co-main event's a lot closer, Frankie Edgar and Brian Ortega. Much closer. I will do a fights breakdown to put the video out there for some of this. And I will do the prelims. So there's some interesting fights on the prelims. I'm going to break down some of those later. So, you know, you'll have to tune into other videos to see what I think about the prelims for that. But we'll be doing the Dante Wilder versus Ortega fight, and that should be a lot of fun. Showtime Boxing. If you don't have Showtime, I know you have a computer because you're watching me. If you want to watch the Dante Wilder fight, go on there, give them a little bit of information. You get a 7 free day trial. I'm using my 7 free day trial to watch the Dante Wilder fight. I do have HBO because it comes with my phone plan, but I don't have Showtime. Talking about respects and the difference between how boxing treats other fighters. I think boxing's had some things right, honestly, and some things the UFC's had right. But I was doing a lot of research on that this week, and Luke was even talking about how they build their fans up. Says that fight is going to be huge. Can't wait for it. I'm more excited about that fight than Joshua Parker. 2 undefeated dudes. What is Jesus, Dante Wilder is, I think, 38-0. He's got a 100% knockout ratio. I mean, I know that in boxing, like Luke talked about, I mean, these guys are brought up with what's called opponents. And, you know, they pick and choose their management kind of through. But when you get to that point and you have that many knockouts, and we know he hasn't been fighting all tomato cans because a lot of it's been televised. So that's super impressive. I don't care what you say. Ortiz is a huge dude, says Heaven. He definitely is. He's quite a bit older. I believe he's 38. He has had some issues with drug testing in the past. I thought Wilder had a 100% knockout ratio. According to SB Nation, he's 39-0 with 38 knockouts. So I guess they're probably smarter than me. But yeah, Luis Ortiz, 28-0, 24 knockouts. Wilder's considered the sport's #2 heavyweight by Ring Magazine. Ortiz is #5. Of course, Anthony Johnson's #1. RS says, I'm on Ortiz's side. It's going to be a tough one to call. It's going to be a great fight, though. Showtime, the fights start at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Everything will only say Pacific time. And then you guys can adjust for that. But also going to have Andre Durrell fighting that night. Former bronze medal Olympian. Andre Durrell, he's fighting Jose Uzcategui. I can't pronounce his name, sorry. I want Wilder to win, but I think Ortiz will win, says Cab. Both guys' stories are impressive. Both have daughters with health problems and try to help them making to the top in boxing. And that's the thing, like Luke was talking about, is the story of these fighters. And maybe if they have more fights, they can have more story. So, man, but boxing, they build these up. You know, they do a very good job of it. Even sometimes I feel like Bellator almost does a better job, but they don't have near the talent to work with. I know it's pretty tough on the UFC last week, but one thing I'll say is, man, they do not give people free passes. They've tried to build people up. They were trying to build up Mike Perry and Sage Northcutt. They gave them 2 guys where they were favorites this last week. They tried to give them guys that they would look good against, but they were game guys because they only have so many people. Whoever's in there, I mean, they have 600 fighters. That person is at least the 600 best fighter in the world. Probably better. And at that weight class, he's probably in the top 30 or higher. So Max Griffin, you know, with the upset. And then the Sage Northcutt barely escaped. I can't remember who he was fighting. What about Conor trying to fight Frankie Edgar? The Irish is running away from Khabib. I have doubts whether that conversation ever took place. I don't know why he would bring it out and lie, but why does Conor do half the things he does? Frankie Edgar, I was listening to him a little bit of him on an interview, MMA Junkie. He was actually on there on Tuesday, a couple days ago. And he says Conor is the master of keeping his name out there. I mean, look at the Instagram post. It was Instagram or Twitter where he had the picture of him with the boat, and it just said Tony. And then nothing happens. He's put rumors out there that he was going to fight Khabib in Russia. I mean, the guy runs his mouth, but what the hell has he done in forever? And I will give a little bit of time talking to him about him this week, but we got a couple minutes, and then that's the end of Conor time. So anybody wants to say 2 more things about Conor, and then let's go on to the next subject and not mention him again. No. He's going to fight Khabib in Russia when pigs fly. For sure, RS, that's one. I heard a rumor that he was asking the UFC to make a 165-pound weight class so he could win another belt. This guy's won 4 belts in his career, 2 in the UFC, and I think I talked about it on here a different time, 2 in another league as he was coming up, never defended one of them. BB wants Conor's baby. I haven't seen BB in a while. I think maybe we upset him. Oh, I show him those Conor gloves I have. He might jizz himself. And never defended a single one. Yep, exactly, RS. Never defended a belt. And a lot of people say that if you're not the champion until you defend, if that's the case, he's never been a champion. So he can take those belts and shove them up his ass as far as I'm concerned. Do you believe Conor offered to fight Frankie and just for media attention, which he's good at? I think he did it for media attention. I don't think he ever offered to fight Frankie. I don't know why he would. It's not the easiest sell for him, and it's a very, very tough matchup, and I think he would lose that fight. If anybody wanted to bet on that fight, I would bet Frankie all day. I think he did it for an easier fight, says 7. If it was Holloway, I don't think he would. I don't think he beats Frankie Edgar, though. I don't, and you know, Frankie Edgar doesn't match up so bad against Max Holloway. I wouldn't count him out against Holloway. I mean, I know Holloway's going to be the favorite. I'm not underestimating Holloway, but I would never underestimate Frankie either. So, all right, we are done with Conor. Next subject. Does anyone have interest in Bellator 195 tomorrow? Leandro Higo, 35-pound champion, and Darian Caldwell. Also, Joe Warren's going to fight Joe Tomingo. Ortega is the future of that division. You might be right. That is a beast. That dude is a beast. I don't know that he gets past Frankie, but, man, that's going to be great. Adam, good evening. I'm high as tits. How are the boys? How are the boys? We're doing good, Adam. You would have loved my last guest, Luke Cummo. You're going to have to watch that interview. Shoot, I should have started recording again, but that's fine. I can always cut and edit this later. I love it, Cap. But, yeah, you'd love that Luke Cummo guy, and he just barely touched on the medical marijuana thing. But, yeah, he's a big advocate for marijuana. So I have no doubt that I can get him on here high if anybody's interested in watching that. Yeah, I think you'll really enjoy it, Adam. Guy is he's an awesome dude. Absolutely. But I didn't hear any interest in Bellator 195 tomorrow night. Darian Caldwell versus Leandro Higo. And then Joe Warren versus Joe Tomingo. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. But if you guys don't have interest in that one, I think I'm just going to skip that night, honestly. And maybe go out to a movie with my wife. I like Darian Caldwell. He trains with Dominique Cruz. Plus, Darian is an NCAA wrestling champ. I did see that. Absolutely, Zoltan. If you watch some of his videos, he's an awesome dude, but I'm pretty sure he's high in a lot of them. I didn't expect him to be that well-spoken today, but I didn't start recording when I started talking to him. I wanted to make sure our audio was good, and he was actually standing outside the gym doing that interview for us because he had just finished teaching class. So I think that's probably when his brain's in the best place, and I'm going to tell him maybe you should do more of your videos right after your workout. RS is not very interested in that card, but Leandro Higo is a funny character. I watched one of his post-fight interviews, and he is just one of a kind. Yeah, I'm not sure. You guys think about it. I'll do a fight breakdown on just the main fights in that card, and I'll let you guys tell me in the comment section there if there's enough interest, if you guys are going to watch it. If not, the wife's been bugging me to watch a couple movies. I'll probably just go out with her and watch a movie. So just one moment for a commercial beer break, and I will go on to my next question, which I really want to get you guys' opinion on. All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. It was a long interview. I had to take a quick bathroom break, too. Zoltan says, anyone here had a rib injury before? Been about a week. Still hurts. Ouch, Zoltan. Actually, I had a rib pop out of the cartilage. I think I talked about this on the show before. I was in a judo match in Canada. At the time, they didn't care about weight classes a whole lot. And I was fighting a 185er. I was 156. So I'm cutting not a lot of weight. I was walking around about 163, 165 at the time. They put me up against a 185er because there was nobody in the two weight classes above me. He looked like he cut from at least 200. He got on top in a pin position. I tried to bridge up, and when I bridged up, the difference in weight actually popped my rib out of the cartilage, and I knew it right away. I was a lot younger then. It only really bothered me. I mean, really hurt for maybe a couple weeks. I was training in less than 2 weeks, but probably hurt for 4 weeks. So, Adam, not looking forward to waiting 5 weeks for 223. How many fight nights between them? Well, I have to look at the schedule. 2 events, 7th and the 13th, Zoltan says. All right, Zoltan's on top of it. Of course, we have the Dante Wilder fight we're going to do on the 3rd, the boxing match. And then, yeah, it's a little ways off. But RS says, Higo just complains in every post-fight interview, saying he gets beat up in the gym every day and gets home completely demotivated. What a guy. Interesting. Adam Turner, I broke ribs in a crowbar concert. You'll be okay in a month, bro. That sounds like, I've never heard of crowbar, but that kind of sounds like a concert you might get your ribs broken at. Take some meds, bro. Thanks for the heads up. Cap, fuck Higo. Caldwell will beat him tomorrow, RS. I'm sticking with my Brazilian brother. So we have a difference of opinion there. I like it. My next subject I want to go into, of course, Zoltan says, I don't take meds or x-rays, but I have 2 dislocated ribs before this. One I don't think is broken, but feels different because it's on the side. My wife actually has a broken rib right now, too. I think I was telling you guys on another show during one of the Fight Companions. She had bronchitis, and she was coughing so hard, actually, that she broke her rib. And she might have broken a rib on the other side, too. She's been pretty miserable. But I think it kind of depends on, as we get older, I think it maybe takes us a little longer to heal. If you can get away without taking meds, though, I agree with you, Zoltan, for sure. So I want to talk about UFC Fight Pass. I don't know here who has UFC Fight Pass. I do. I've had it the whole time. And no, this isn't a plug for UFC Fight Pass at all. I actually want to talk about if it's a positive or a negative for the UFC. Yeah, I would say weed. I would say medical marijuana is a good choice, Adam. There's a lot of studies out there that it's more effective than Oxycontin and other painkillers that are highly addictive. RS, I'm broke. I don't have UFC Fight Pass. Sorry, bro. So the reason I brung it up is we've talked about so many cards and things lately and not having enough time to build fighters. So UFC Fight Pass being out there, does that make it harder for the UFC to make money showing a lot of these old fights on TV? Obviously it does, but are they making it back? I don't know. I don't know if they will be eventually, but I don't think they marketed it right from the beginning. I don't think they're marketing it right now, and I think they did it too early. Exactly, Cap. Not too many people have Fight Pass. Usually fat people suffer. Oh, Jesus, Frank. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Frank. I agree, but weed makes me batshit. Tramadol are beautiful, though. Just saying. Yeah, I've tried edibles just like 3 times, Adam. Never smoked, but I can't function basically for about 2 days after I've taken them. So it all depends on the person. Distended stomach muscle means ribs can move around. I'm looking up right now. I couldn't remember the number. How many people have actually bought Fight Pass? They just came out with the numbers for the first time this week. I guess they've kept them secret in the past, which of course UFC does with most things. Salaries, how many views of certain pay-per-views. Here's a article on Reddit MMA. It says UFC would need 1.4 million Fight Pass subs at $25 a month to cancel pay-per-views. And here it says Fight Pass has 450,000 subscribers. Major, major fail, in my opinion. Major. How many? I mean, you're looking at how many pay-per-views that are decent sell less than 400,000, and you're giving away a whole year of fighting for $120. I mean, to me, that's an insane fail on marketing. But I would say these fights right now in their form would be more valuable if they showed these things less often, put some commercials for them on Fox, whatever channel it is you're going to have. We're going to replay this and such fight. We're going to replay such and such fight. That's why Netflix started putting movies and shows on and taking them off. They actually started getting more popular and having less people cancel when they did that. Because I don't know what the thinking was. I don't know if a lot of people were continually subscribing to Netflix and canceling every other month to save that $8, but they've definitely been more successful since then. But I think that they should have waited until the people asked for it. I think, honestly, Dana should have waited till somebody on a big show said, hey, why can't we watch all these fights? And, play out the cat and mouse game. Oh, there's not interest in it. Nobody wants to see all these fights. Nobody wants to see these fights. And then don't bring them out all at the same time. Don't bring them out all at the same time. Then you can advertise when you're having something new. Hey, this weekend we're going to have the replay of this UFC. We just put it on. And then when people go on, they realize that the replay for number 88 is gone. Now, in the future, you can say returning to Fight Pass this month, UFC 88. Maybe they should take that idea. They can make a little more money. And I wouldn't have a problem with that if it gets the fighters a little more money. Adam says, my buddy has this illegal box here in Wales. Free fights all year round, including boxing. Sneaky effort, right? Yeah, for sure. I've heard of a lot more people in Europe doing that. And I know there's a lot of like the VIP.eu kinds of things. I don't pirate just because I try to get as much money as I can to the fighters. Maybe I should just start writing checks and sending them off in their name, though. Just like, whoever got knocked out last week, hey, hope you feel better. Here's $500. It's probably a better way for them to make money, right? I like it when you start seeing them make YouTube channels and doing their own podcasts like Chael Sonnen's. Chael Sonnen's is one of the best MMA podcasts that you will listen to. It's better than what ESPN tried to put out as a podcast, I think. Oh, you're good, Adam. Comedic Genius says, my girlfriend got a sloppy box. Well, thanks for the info. Comedic Genius. Good idea, Mike. Good way to get interviews, too. Well, thank you, Zoltan. Appreciate the feedback. RS, I just found out UFC only paid $40K to Shane Carwin in his fight with Lesnar that had over 1 million pay-per-view. That is ridiculous. And that guy's an engineer. I actually reached out to him through another fighter who thought that he would give the interview. And he responded to me right away. And we went back and forth a little bit. But he just said, I'm retired. I'm not interested in that. And I pushed him a little bit. And I was like, you don't want to talk about your old glory days. I just wanted, to talk about it for the fans. And he's like, nah, man, I'm trying to stay retired. Thanks, though. So I'm respectful of that. But yeah, he's a smart dude too. Train engineer, I believe. A lot of these guys are, actually really smart people. So with big degrees. Adam says, so how long is Bones out for again, dudes? Cap says, will you take Luke Cummo up on his offer? I will be working with Luke as much as I can. It'd be hard for me to get to New York, but I'm going to work with him as much as I can. I want to have him on the show for some other things too. Like I was talking about doing some non-MMA shows. If it's on this channel, I'll mark them. So people that only want to watch MMA stuff, whatever, you'll know it's not MMA. But until I can get this other channel more popular, which is Weapons of Mass Destruction. You've probably seen that's where I'm commenting from right now. But Comedic Genius says, hey, all BS aside, good interview. No, I loved him, and I thought it went just long enough. When you let a guy talk, and that's, what I try to take from Joe Rogan, is people are so impressed with Joe Rogan's interview style. It's just, nobody else ever let the fighters talk. I watched an interview with Luke Cummo on one of these shows that considers themselves a big MMA show. I can't remember who they are. They have like 4 or 5,000 subscribers in like 7 years. So hopefully I'm higher than that after 7 years. But after like 5 minutes, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Luke, we're out of time. He wanted to keep talking. And they cut him off and moved on to some other gimmicky BS. They didn't even have another fighter waiting. So I thought that was pretty disrespectful. Adam Turner says 18 months. So John Jones was fined $205,000, 40% of his purse. When he was asked to defend himself, he pled ignorance, said he had no idea how the drugs got in his body. Then he decided, without being prompted, to throw his lawyers under the bus and tell the court that he had paid them $350 an hour to take his USADA training for him. So now they could be guilty of forging documents. Everything said, he can apply for his California license again August 26, assuming USADA doesn't tack any extra penalties on. I think there's a good chance they don't. And honestly, September, that's 4 months. That's pretty close to an average fight camp and promotion time anyways. So honestly, we could see him in September. As bad as he messed up. One show I want to do, which he'd be a great guest on, is Big Pharma versus marijuana, versus the marijuana industry. I'm not what you call a pothead, whatever. I haven't taken a lot of marijuana, but I know most people don't realize it's been around 100 or more years that Big Pharma has been spending millions and billions of dollars to keep marijuana out of the public eye for everything. I mean, they'd even legalized hemp until here recently. You couldn't buy hemp paper. You couldn't eat hemp seeds. It's ridiculous. Schedule 1 drug. Cocaine's a Schedule 2 drug. Marijuana's a Schedule 1 drug. Still that way federally. It's like, come on. So yeah, I'd like to do about an hour, some kind of documentary, maybe just like an interview thing on some of the things that Big Pharma's done and some of the ways that unions and different things have fought against marijuana. Prison systems. Prison unions have donated huge amounts in cities where marijuana legalization was on bills. Police unions, jail institution unions, because there wouldn't be as many jobs for prison guards. And it's freaking ridiculous. Thanks, Mike. Holy ass, crazy stuff, says Adam Turner. RS, but that means he is just forbidden from fighting in California, right? No, it's pretty much nationally. USADA will uphold that. Cap says, nah, no way. USADA doesn't give him a suspension. USADA will suspend him. I'll do a line for you, committed genius. Oh, Jesus. But, yeah, Cap, you're right. They're going to suspend him. I think it is likely, maybe 50-50 though, that they only uphold what California has decided and just make that nationally. So a year with time served. It may be more. I think it should be a minimum of a year from when his first hearing was supposed to be. Because remember, he's dragged this out over 4 months since he's fought. No, more than that. August 26th. Over 6 months. And he came to court and he had absolutely jack shit. The only thing he had was to throw his lawyers under the bus and let everyone know that he hadn't taken his USADA papers. And if you guys want to see some highlights of the interviews online, some of the things out there, one of the lawyers, it was funny, she's asking him, she says, so is it true the UFC gave you a Bentley in such and such year? And he says, yes, that's true. Says, is it also true that you wrapped that car around a pole? And he's just putting his head down. And then, you know, they put everything out on the line. I will say that. All the cards, basically everything, you know, everything that we know publicly that he's done, the dick pills, the whole thing. John Jones is a selfish coward. Yeah, I cannot disagree with you, RS. Cap says he will get at least a year, if not two. Only way he gets off clean is if USADA gets paid off. Well, the UFC does pay them for a reason. I have no reason to believe that they have not, that they've been disingenuous. Obviously, they're the ones that popped him. But like I said, I would not be surprised if they say a year with time served, which means he can fight August 26th. That's when the Cormier fight was. A year later, that's, you know, a little more than 4 months from now. And probably against Brock Lesnar. Did you see Brock Lesnar actually online? I think it was on Instagram, picture with Dana White and Brock Lesnar's manager saying he's ready to come back anytime. I thought that was interesting because if John Jones isn't there, I'm not sure who he'd fight. Cormier and Stipe would be obvious candidates, but they're fighting each other. Maybe Francis Ngannou. Maybe Brock Lesnar against Francis Ngannou. Thing is, it's 2 years mandatory. John won't be back for a while. Well, if he gets 2 years, I mean, he deserves every bit of that. And I don't see how anybody can argue with you, Cap, because, you know, they had talked the tainted supplement and all these different things. He admitted that even though USADA asked for a list of all the supplements that you take, he comes in and says, oh, actually, I was taking these other 9 supplements that I didn't tell you about. So knowing John Jones, I'm pretty sure he went out there, had some people do some research, say what supplements have the most people been, you know, tested positive for that weren't actually taking drugs. What supplements are made on the same lines as steroid and cocaine? Then he went out, grabbed 9 of those and said, oh yeah, I've been taking all these. So RS, can't believe they're going to allow Brock juice to the gills Lesnar fight again in the UFC. Adam says, damn, I know he fudged up, but I enjoy his fights. Try not to swear. You're good with the swear, man. You're fine. I swear on here too. I try not to too much, but the thing with Lesnar is strange. So when he failed his test against Mark Hunt, he tested positive in the past, I believe, but it was before USADA came in, and he had technically retired. So when he came back, USADA considered him a new fighter, which the UFC probably pulled a few strings to allow that, I imagine. And he probably didn't plan on coming back for more than one, honestly. And then maybe they're throwing a bunch of money at him. I don't know. But sounds like he's talking about coming back again. So I don't know. And then Ronda Rousey in the WWE. I don't watch WWE. I wasn't watching any of it, but I seen a small clip that somebody had posted online, And damn, you're trying to convince us that Ronda Rousey could grab Triple H, who is about a 250 to 300 pound man, and slam his head through a table. That was her first action in the WWE. If anybody wants to look it up. I mean, I don't know what the move is there to have her come in on such a strong note against a huge male character. I don't know if they plan on having her only fight males. I mean, I don't understand that. But like I said, I don't really watch WWE, so maybe small females currently throw 300-pound men around all the time. I don't know. Brock versus Jones makes for a good karma fight, both juice heads. Well, yeah, for sure. And that's the fight they were trying to set up. It's WWE. Don't bother to argue. Oh, for sure, RS. But, you know, obviously Vince McMahon's a smart man because he's been selling fake fighting for, what, 40 frickin' years? And he's a billionaire. If not a billionaire, I know close to a billionaire off doing it. So, I mean, he's doing something right. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't get my entertainment, but all right, guys. Like I said, I'm going to do some picks. I will do picks for UFC 222, even though, like I said, I'll only watch the prelims. We'll do the Dante Wilder. I'll do just the top 4 for the main on Bellator. Just let me know in the comments today and tomorrow if you guys are interested in watching Bellator 195. If you're not, I'll go out and watch whatever movie it is with my wife. She's been wanting to watch. RS says, don't understand how people love WWE. Americans are weird folks. I seen a trick. Excuse me. I seen a trick that they do. I seen a video. It's WWE tricks. And maybe you guys already knew this, and I'm the last one to know, but they put things up in the stands. For one thing, they give away a ton of tickets when they think something's not going to sell a lot. And they pay fans to go in there and scream and make signs and root and whatever. And then they paint things up and put things up in the stands to make it look like they're full. Or some events, they'll just never show the camera angle with the upper stands. But they always, every single event, they try to give the illusion of a sold-out event. And I believe they may actually say, you know, WWE sold out for so many hundreds of shows. I know they used to. Adam Turner, in his words, I'm the man because I control the outcome. Vince McMahon. Very true. And that's something Chael Sonnen brung up, you know. He, on his podcast, he kind of criticized the WWE a little bit. He's like, really? You're having him throw Triple H through a table? But he's like, you know, when you control the outcome, I guess you can build her up however you see fit. So we'll see. I know there's a lot of Ronda Rousey haters out there. I've been somewhat of a fan throughout my life. A lot of it, like I said, probably because of judo. But I also like that smile and blondes and women. And I will end on that. Thank you very much for everybody's patience today. Thank you for tuning in to the Luke Cummo interview. If you didn't see all of that, that'll be posted up in the DVR. Watch it today because I'm going to cut these up into 2 videos. So they'll both be temporarily unavailable, most likely by YouTube as I cut them up. But actually, you know what? I'm just going to keep them one video. It's just going to be the Fights with Friends and have the Luke Cummo interview on there now that I think about it. So it'll be a 2-hour stream time. So you guys can back up and watch that. It'll probably only take maybe 30 minutes for it to upload. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, Adam. Love you guys as always. I'm going to finish my beer. No one tell Luke because he's a freaking health nut. And I will see you guys soon. Have a good night.